The February wind cuts through my cardigan like tiny knives, and I hug myself tighter as I wait under the flickering fluorescent light at the bus stop, watching my breath form small clouds in the freezing air. My car decided to die on me this morning, and of course it happened on the coldest day of the year when the temperature dropped to 15 degrees, and I can barely feel my fingers even though I've shoved them deep into my pockets. The bus schedule says another 30 minutes, and I'm already shivering so hard my teeth are chattering, but there's nothing I can do except wait and try not to think about how I can't afford to fix the car until next paycheck, and how I'm going to get to school tomorrow. The bus stop is completely deserted, just me and the ice crystals forming on the metal bench, and the sound of wind howling through the plastic shelter that rattles with each gust. I shift my canvas bag higher on my shoulder, and some of the papers from today's spelling tests slip out onto the ground, and I bend to gather them with numb fingers, the red pen marks I made this afternoon already feeling like they happened in another lifetime. That's when I notice him. A little boy, maybe 5 years old, huddled on the far end of the bench in nothing but a thin sweater and jeans. No coat, no hat, no gloves. He's shivering so violently I can see it from here, and my heart immediately clenches, because what kind of monster leaves a child out in this weather? I forget about my papers and move toward him quickly, crouching down to his level so I don't scare him. "Hey, sweetheart, where's your family?" I ask as gently as I can, even though I'm shocked and angry and terrified for this little boy. "You must be so cold." He doesn't answer, just stares at me with the most unusual eyes I've ever seen, this amber gold color that seems to glow even in the dim light. Tears are streaming down his red cheeks, and his small fingers are clutched together in his lap, and he's shaking so hard I'm afraid he's going into hypothermia. I don't even think about it. I just pull off my heavy wool coat, the only warm thing I have, and wrap it around his tiny shoulders. It swallows him completely, but at least it will help. "It's okay," I tell him, tucking the coat around him more securely. "You can keep it. I'll be fine. Someone's coming for you, I'm sure of it." He doesn't speak, but his little fingers grab onto the edges of my coat and hold on tight like it's a lifeline. I sit next to him on the bench, even though the cold metal burns through my thin cardigan, and I'm now completely exposed to the freezing wind. My whole body starts shaking within seconds, but I can't take the coat back. I just can't. Not when I look at his small face and see the fear there. "Where are your parents, sweetie?" I try again. "Are you lost?" Still nothing. He just stares at me with those strange golden eyes and cries silently. I'm trying to figure out what to do, whether I should call the police or wait to see if someone comes looking for him, when I hear the sound of engines. Multiple engines. I look up and see 3 massive black SUVs racing down the empty street toward us, moving way too fast for the icy conditions. They screech to a halt right in front of the bus stop, surrounding it, and my heart starts pounding because this doesn't feel right. This feels dangerous. Car doors slam open and men pour out, at least 8 of them, all wearing expensive dark suits that probably cost more than I make in a month. They move with this coordinated precision that makes me think military or security or something equally intimidating. I instinctively move closer to the little boy, putting myself between him and these men, even though I have no idea what's happening. Then he steps out of the center vehicle. I notice him immediately because it's impossible not to. He's tall, probably 6'2" or 6'3", with dark hair and features so sharp they could cut glass. He's wearing a suit that makes the other men's clothes look cheap, all black with a crisp white shirt, and he moves with this controlled grace that speaks of power and danger. He can't be more than 32 or 33, but there's something in his eyes that makes him seem older, harder. Those eyes lock onto the little boy next to me, and I see his entire body go rigid. "Marco," he says, and his voice is rough with emotion, raw in a way that doesn't match his controlled exterior. The little boy makes a small sound, and the man's eyes snap to me, taking in every detail of my face, like he's memorizing it or cataloging it for some purpose I can't understand. His gaze drops to my trembling body, my lips that I know must be turning blue from the cold, and something flashes across his face. His jaw tightens. The other men have formed a semicircle around the bus stop, and I'm suddenly very aware that I'm surrounded, that I'm alone on an empty street with men who radiate danger, that my canvas bag and spelling tests and normal life seem impossibly far away. I stand up slowly, keeping my hands visible because I've watched enough crime shows to know that's important. I didn't do anything wrong, I say, and I hate that my voice shakes, but I'm cold and scared and confused. He was alone and freezing. I was just trying to help. The man moves closer, and even though he's not touching me, I can feel the intensity rolling off him in waves. I know exactly what you did, he says, his voice dangerously soft. His eyes drop to his nephew wrapped in my coat, and then back to my face. The question is why? Why? I repeat stupidly. Because he's a child, and it's 15 degrees, and he was going to freeze to death. The man studies me for a long moment, and I force myself to meet his gaze, even though everything in me wants to look away from those dark eyes that seem to see right through me. "What's your name?" he asks. "Emma," I tell him. "Emma Clarke. I'm a teacher at Lincoln Elementary. My car broke down, and I was waiting for the bus, and I found him. Here, and I couldn't just leave him." The wind howls again, and I shiver violently, wrapping my arms around myself. One of the other men says something in what sounds like Italian, and the tall man responds in the same language, sharp and commanding. Then he looks back at me. "You're coming with us," he says, "and it's not a question." "What?" I say. "No. I'm not going anywhere with you. I don't even know who you are." "Miss Clarke," he says, and the way he says my name makes my skin prickle. "You've been very kind to my nephew, but you're freezing and we need to talk about how you came to find him here." "I appreciate the help, but I'm fine," I lie. "The bus will be here soon." His eyes flick to the bus schedule behind me, and then back to my face. "In 28 minutes. You'll have hypothermia by then. I promise you're not in danger. We just need to understand what happened." I want to argue, but my whole body is shaking so hard I can barely stand. And the little boy Marco is looking at me with those golden eyes, and I realize that whatever is happening here, it's bigger than I understand. One of the men brings a heavy coat, clearly meant for someone much larger than me, and the tall man takes it and steps forward. "May I?" he asks, holding it out. It's such a civilized gesture in this surreal situation that I almost laugh, but I just nod. He drapes it over my shoulders, and it's still warm from whoever was wearing it before, and I can't help the small sound of relief that escapes me. "Thank you," I manage. He nods once. "My name is Dante Moretti. Marco is my nephew. He's been missing for 3 days." His eyes bore into mine. "And I need to know how you happened to be at this exact bus stop at this exact time to find him." 3 days, I breathe, looking down at the little boy who's still clutching my coat. "Oh my God. Is he okay? Does he need a hospital?" Dante's expression shifts slightly, something that might be surprise. "He's being examined by our doctor now," he says, gesturing to one of the men who's crouched next to Marco, checking him over with practiced efficiency. "But your concern is noted. Please, Miss Clarke, come with us, get warm, answer some questions, then we'll make sure you get home safely." I look at the empty street, the flickering bus stop light, my scattered papers blowing across the frozen ground. I look at Marco wrapped in my coat, at Dante Moretti standing there in his expensive suit with danger and grief and something unreadable in his dark eyes. I look at the SUVs and the men and the life I had 30 minutes ago that suddenly feels impossibly distant. "Okay," I hear myself say. "Okay." The ride to the penthouse passes in a blur of city lights and tense silence, with Marco sitting between Dante and me in the back seat while one of the men drives, and another sits in the front passenger seat, constantly scanning the streets like he expects an attack at any moment. Marco has fallen asleep against my side, still wrapped in my coat, and I keep one arm around him. Because he's so small and vulnerable and I can't seem to let go, even though I know I should. Dante watches us the entire time, his expression unreadable, and I alternate between fear and confusion, and this strange protectiveness over a child I met 20 minutes ago. The building we pull up to is all glass and steel and money, the kind of place I've walked past 1,000 times and never imagined being inside. The elevator is mirrored and moves so smoothly I barely feel it, and when the doors open directly into the penthouse apartment, I actually stop breathing for a second. Floor-to-ceiling windows show the entire city spread out below us, lights glittering like stars, and the space is enormous and decorated in cold modern luxury with glass and steel and leather furniture that probably costs more than my entire yearly salary. Everything is sharp angles and perfectly placed, beautiful but unwelcoming, like a magazine spread rather than a home. A woman appears from somewhere in the back, older, with kind eyes and silver hair pulled into a neat bun, and she makes a sound of relief when she sees Marco. "Oh, thank God," she says, rushing forward. Dante speaks to her in rapid Italian and she nods, gently taking Marco from my arms. He whimpers slightly, but doesn't wake as she carries him away down a hallway, and I feel the loss of his small weight against me like a physical thing. Dante gestures to the living area where a leather couch faces those massive windows. "Please sit, Miss Clarke. I'll get you something to warm you up." I perch on the edge of the couch, too nervous to relax, and watch as he moves to a bar cart and pours amber liquid into a crystal glass. He brings it to me, and I take it automatically, even though I don't drink scotch, don't really drink at all. The glass sits in my hands, warming my frozen fingers, but I don't taste it. Dante pours himself a glass and then stands by the windows, backlit by the city, and I realize this is a power move, making me look up at him, keeping the light in my eyes. "You're not drinking," he observes. "I don't really like scotch," I admit. "And I'm not sure I should be drinking anything right now given that I have no idea what's happening." "Fair enough," he says, but he doesn't offer me anything else. "Tell me exactly what happened tonight, from the beginning." I go through it again, every detail I can remember. My car breaking down this morning, taking the bus after school, waiting at that stop, finding Marco. He listens without interrupting, those dark eyes never leaving my face, and I feel like he's examining every word for cracks. When I finish, there's a long silence. "People don't just help in my world, Miss Clarke," he finally says, starting to pace. "Everything has a price. What's yours?" I feel anger spark through my fear. "Not everyone operates on transactions," I say. "Some of us just see a freezing child and react like human beings. Is that such a foreign concept to you?" His jaw tightens. "In my experience, yes. But let's assume for a moment that you're exactly what you appear to be. A good Samaritan, a teacher with a kind heart. That still doesn't explain the timing." "I don't understand," I say. "Marco has been missing for 3 days," Dante says, "and now he's not pacing anymore. He's standing perfectly still, which somehow seems more dangerous. 3 days, Miss Clarke, taken from his private school by professionals who left no trace, no ransom demands, no contact. Nothing. We've had every resource searching for him. And then tonight, he simply appears at a bus stop, perfectly positioned where you would find him, wearing clothes we've never seen before." His eyes bore into mine. "You understand why that's concerning. The full weight of what he's implying hits me, and I stand up despite my shaking legs. "You think I'm involved in kidnapping a child?" I say, and my voice is louder than I intend. "You actually think I had something to do with this? I'm a third-grade teacher. I make $42,000 a year. I took the bus tonight because my car is broken and I can't afford to fix it until next paycheck. Does that sound like someone masterminding kidnapping plots?" "Innocence can be weaponized, Miss Clarke," he says quietly. And you have the most convincing performance I've ever seen. He pauses. If it is a performance, I want to scream, or throw the scotch glass or storm out, but I'm trapped here in this cold, beautiful penthouse with a man who thinks I'm a criminal, and a little boy who needs help, and I don't know what to do. Is Marco okay? I ask instead, my anger deflating into worry. He didn't speak to me at all. Is he hurt? Is he traumatized? Something shifts in Dante's expression, softening almost imperceptibly. That's what you're concerned about right now, he says, and it sounds like a question. While I'm accusing you of conspiracy, you're worried about my nephew. Of course I am, I say. He's 5 years old and he's been through something terrible. That matters more than your paranoia about me. He studies me for another long moment, and then moves to a desk in the corner where multiple computer monitors glow with various camera feeds. He touches something on a keyboard, and one of the screens changes. Come here, he says. I hesitate, but then cross to stand beside him. The screen shows security footage from different angles near the bus stop, grainy but clear enough. He clicks through, and I see myself waiting alone, see myself notice Marco, see myself crouch down and talk to him. Then I watch myself take off my coat and wrap it around him, tucking it carefully around his small body, sitting next to him, even though I'm obviously freezing. The tenderness in my own movements surprises me, how gentle I am with this stranger child, how I keep talking to him even though he doesn't respond. Dante watches the footage and then looks at me. My men retrieve this from nearby businesses, he says. I've watched it 4 times now. His voice is rough, trying to find the deception, the angle, the con. And, I whisper. And I can't, he admits, which terrifies me more than if I could. He moves away from the monitors and runs a hand through his dark hair, and for the first time I see the exhaustion under his controlled exterior. My brother, Marco's father, died 6 months ago, he says abruptly. His car went off a bridge in the rain. The police called it an accident. Mechanical failure and bad weather. I know it was murder. I'm sorry, I say, meaning it. That must have been devastating. Marco is all I have left of him, Dante continues, and there's raw pain in his voice now. The only family I have left, the only thing that matters. When he was taken, when I couldn't find him, when every hour passed with nothing, I was ready to burn this entire city down. Do you understand what I'm saying, Miss Clarke? I understand you love him, I say quietly. I understand you're scared. And I understand why my involvement seems suspicious. But I promise you, I had nothing to do with his disappearance. I was just in the wrong place at the right time. Or the right place at the right time, depending on how you look at it. That's exactly the problem, he says, turning to face me fully. You were in the exactly correct place at the exactly correct time to find a child who'd been missing for 3 days. That's not coincidence. That's planning. Someone put him there knowing you'd be there. Someone wanted you to find him. Why, I ask. Why would anyone do that? I don't know, he says, and the admission clearly costs him. But I will find out, and until I do, you're not safe. What does that mean? I ask, alarm rising. It means whoever orchestrated this knows who you are now, Dante says. They know you had contact with Marco. They know you were kind to him. In my world, Miss Clarke, kindness gets you killed. I need to go home, I say. I have students tomorrow. I have a life. You can't keep me here. He looks at me, and something in his eyes makes my stomach drop. I can do exactly that, he says. But I won't, not yet. What I will do is have my men take you home, watch your building, make sure you're safe. And tomorrow, we'll talk more. I want to argue, but I can hear the steel in his voice. The woman, Rosa, appears in the doorway. Mr. Moretti, she says. Marco is asking for her. For the lady who gave him the coat. Dante's eyebrows rise slightly. He's speaking, Rosa says. First words since we found him. He wants Emma. I look at Dante and he gestures toward the hallway. After you, he says. Marco's room is the only space in this cold apartment that feels warm, full of toys and books and photos on the walls. The little boy is in bed, my coat spread over him like a blanket, and when he sees me, his face crumples. "You came back," he whispers. "Of course I did," I say, moving to sit on the edge of his bed without thinking. I wouldn't leave without saying goodbye. His small hand reaches out and grabs mine. "Don't go," he says. "Please don't go like Daddy did." My heart breaks. I'm not going. "Far, I promise. And your uncle is right here. He'll keep you safe." He watches me from the doorway, this dangerous, beautiful man with grief carved into his features, and our eyes meet over his nephew's head. "I'll come back tomorrow," I hear myself say. "If you want me to. If your uncle says it's okay." Marco looks at Dante with those amber gold eyes. "Please, Uncle Dante," he says. "Please let her come back." Dante's expression is unreadable, but he nods slowly. "Tomorrow," he agrees. His eyes meet mine again. "We have a lot more to discuss, Miss Clarke." "I'm sure we do," I say. "But right now this little boy needs to sleep." I stay with Marco until his eyes drift closed, singing softly because that's what I do with my students when they're upset. And when I finally stand to leave, Dante is still there watching. "That was kind," he says quietly as we walk back to the living room. "That's just being human," I counter. "You should try it sometime." He almost smiles. Almost. One of his men appears with a cashmere sweater, charcoal gray and incredibly soft. "You're still cold," Dante says. "Take this." I debate refusing, but I am still shivering and it seems petty. I pull it on, and it swallows me, but it's warm and smells like expensive cologne. "Thank you," I manage. "My men will take you home now," he says. "They'll be watching your building tonight. Don't be alarmed if you see them." "Because you still don't trust me," I say. "Because I don't trust anyone," he corrects. "But I'm starting to think you might actually be exactly what you appear to be. And that, Miss Clarke, might be the most dangerous thing of all." The next morning, I wake up in a bedroom that's twice the size of my entire apartment, and for a disoriented moment, I forget where I am until I see the floor-to-ceiling windows and the city spread out below, and remember that I'm essentially a prisoner in a penthouse owned by a man who may or may not think I'm a criminal. I find Rosa in the kitchen, which is all gleaming marble and stainless steel, and she smiles at me warmly and pours coffee into a cup that probably costs more than my weekly grocery budget. "Good morning, dear," she says. "Mr. Moretti had to step out, but he left instructions that you're to stay in the apartment today." I set the cup down harder than I intend. "He can't just keep me here," I say, anger flooding through me. "I have students. I have a life. I need to go to work." Rosa's expression is sympathetic but firm. "Your students have a substitute," she says gently. "Your building manager was told you had a family emergency. Your principal received a call that you needed to take a few personal days. Everything has been handled." "By him," I say flatly. "By a man who doesn't even know me." Rosa busies herself with breakfast. "He's protecting you," she says. "Whether you believe that or not. Your life is on pause until he determines you're not a threat." "And how long will that take?" I demand. "As long as it takes," she says simply. "I want to throw something or scream or run, but I'm trapped here in this cold, beautiful space, and there's nothing I can do about it." I spend the morning pacing the guest suite, which is decorated like a high-end hotel room, all neutral colors and expensive furniture, but completely impersonal, no warmth or character, and I feel like a bird in a gilded cage. The only clothes I have are what Rosa bought for me yesterday, basic items that fit but aren't mine, and even they feel like another layer of control. Around noon, I hear small footsteps in the hallway, and then Marco appears in my doorway, still wearing pajamas, clutching a stuffed rabbit. He doesn't say anything, just stands there watching me with those amber gold eyes. "Hi, sweetheart," I say softly, crouching down to his level. "Did you sleep okay?" He nods slowly. "Are you hungry?" I ask. We could get some lunch? He takes a tentative step into the room and then another, and then suddenly he's right in front of me, close enough that I can see the fading bruises on his arms that make my heart clench. He reaches out and takes my hand, and I feel tears spring to my eyes, because this small gesture of trust from a traumatized child feels like the most precious thing in the world. Come on, I whisper. Let's go find Rosa. He doesn't let go of my hand as we walk to the kitchen, and when Rosa sees us, her eyes go soft. Oh, she murmurs. Oh, my sweet boy. We eat lunch together at the kitchen island, Rosa and Marco and me, and it's the first time since I arrived that I feel almost normal, even though nothing about this situation is normal. Marco picks at his food, but he stays close to me, occasionally touching my arm like he needs to confirm I'm still there. After lunch, he brings me a book, one of those picture books about dinosaurs, and climbs onto the couch next to me. I read to him in the voice I use with my students, making the dinosaurs sound silly and dramatic, and I swear I see the ghost of a smile on his face. We're halfway through the book when I sense someone watching and look up to find Dante standing in the doorway of the living room. I have no idea how long he's been there. His expression is unreadable, but his eyes are fixed on Marco pressed against my side. I should feel afraid or angry, but instead I just feel sad for this man who clearly loves his nephew so much but doesn't know how to reach him. Dante disappears without a word, and I go back to reading. Over the next 2 days, a strange routine develops. Marco follows me everywhere, silent but present, and I treat him the way I treat my students who are hurting, with patience and gentleness and no demands. I sing to him silly songs about animals and adventures, and read him stories and just sit with him when he wants quiet. Rosa tells me while showing me where everything is in the guest suite that Dante hasn't smiled in 6 months, not since Antonio died. But today, when Marco held your hand, I saw something in his eyes I thought was gone forever. I don't know what to say to that, so I just nod. I observe. Dante too, though I try not to. He works from home to stay near Marco, spending hours in his study on phone calls in rapid Italian that sound ruthless and commanding. Dangerous-looking men come and go, all expensive suits and cold eyes, and I understand more clearly what kind of world I've stumbled into. But I also see the way Dante checks on Marco at night, standing in the doorway of his nephew's room for long minutes, just watching him sleep. I see the grief he thinks no one notices, the way his shoulders slump when he thinks he's alone, the exhaustion carved into his features. On the second evening, Marco falls asleep against me on the couch, his small body finally relaxed after 2 days of slowly letting his guard down. I'm afraid to move and wake him, so I just sit there watching the city lights twinkle outside those massive windows. That's when Dante appears, and instead of disappearing like usual, he sits down in the chair across from us. "You're good with him," he says quietly. "It's the first real conversation we've had since that first night." "I work with kids," I say. "It's what I do." "It's more than that," Dante says. "He hasn't been this calm since before the kidnapping. Since before his father died, really. He trusts you." "I don't know why he trusts me," I admit. "I'm a stranger." "Maybe that's exactly why," Dante suggests. "You have no connection to his trauma. You're safe." We sit in silence for a moment, and then he says, "Rosa tells me you grew up in foster care." I tense slightly. "Is there anything about me you don't know at this point?" "I had you investigated thoroughly," he says without apology, "but the basic facts don't tell me who you are." "That's true," I say. 13 different homes before I aged out. That's why I teach. Every kid deserves at least one adult who sees them, really sees them. Not as a problem or a burden, but as a person. "And you saw Marco," Dante says quietly. "At that bus stop, you could have walked away, told yourself someone else would help, waited for your bus in the cold, and let it be someone else's problem. But you didn't." "No one ever helped me when I needed it most," I say. looking down at Marco's sleeping face. I swore I'd be different. I swore that if I ever had the chance to be the person I needed when I was a kid, I would be, no matter what it cost me. Even your coat in 15-degree weather, Dante says, and there's something in his voice I can't identify. Even that, I confirm. He's quiet for a long moment. My brother was like you, he finally says, and his voice is rough with emotion. Antonio, Marco's father, he saw the good in people, believed everyone deserved a second chance. He was going to go legitimate, get out of the family business, build something clean for Marco to inherit. His walls are cracking, and I can see the pain underneath. It got him killed, he says. That's one way to look at it, I say carefully. Or maybe it gave him a life worth living before he died. Maybe Marco exists because your brother chose love over caution. Maybe the months or years he had being a father were worth whatever came after. Dante's eyes snap to mine. You think dying and leaving your child alone is worth it? I think living fully is always worth it, I say, even if it ends badly, even if it hurts. The alternative is existing in fear and never really living at all. Is that what you think I'm doing? He asks, and there's an edge to his voice, existing in fear. I think you're trying to protect Marco, I say, and I think you're terrified of losing him the way you lost your brother. I think that fear is controlling every decision you make. And I think, I continue, meeting his eyes steadily, that Marco needs more than protection. He needs love and joy and someone who can show him the world can still be good, even after bad things happen. You're criticizing my parenting, Dante says flatly. I'm not his parent, I point out. You are. And I'm not criticizing. I'm observing. There's a difference. He stands abruptly, and I think he's going to walk away angry, but instead he moves to the windows and stares out at the city. You don't understand my world, he says. The threats, the dangers, the people who would hurt a child to get to me. You're right, I agree. I don't understand it. But I understand trauma. I understand what it does to kids. And I understand that Marco needs to heal, not just survive. When he turns back, his expression is less guarded than I've ever seen it. Tell me how, he says. Tell me how to help him heal. I look down at Marco sleeping peacefully against me. Time, I say. Safety. Consistency. People who care about him unconditionally. Therapy, probably, when he's ready. And in the meantime, just being present with him. Not trying to fix everything, but just being there. Dante moves back to his chair and sits down, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. I don't know how to do that, he admits quietly. I know how to eliminate threats and gather intelligence and run an organization. I don't know how to just be. Then learn, I say simply. For him. On the second night, I can't sleep, and I wander out to the living room around 2 a.m. to find Dante in his study with the door open, surrounded by papers and security reports and computer screens showing surveillance footage. He looks exhausted, his tie loosened and his hair disheveled from running his hands through it. I should go back to bed, but instead I find myself in the doorway. Can't sleep either, I observe. He looks up and something flickers in his eyes. Too much to do, he says. We've identified the kidnapping operation. Professionals. Well-funded. Someone with serious resources is targeting my family. Do you ever stop? I ask. Stop working. Stop planning. Stop trying to control everything. If I stop, people die, he says flatly. People I love. I step into the study. Your brother's death wasn't your fault, I say gently. You know that, right? His jaw tightens. I should have seen it coming. Should have protected him better. You can't protect everyone from everything, I say. No matter how hard you try, no matter how much power you have, some things are just beyond our control. He looks at me, and the exhaustion in his eyes is devastating. I can't lose Marco too, he says, and his voice breaks slightly. I can't. You won't, I say with more confidence than I feel. We won't let that happen. We, he repeats, and there's something vulnerable in the way he says it. When did this become we? When you asked for my help with him, I say. When you let me stay and read him stories and hold his hand. When you stopped seeing me as a suspect and started seeing me as someone who cares about that little boy as much as you do. He stands and crosses to where I'm standing, and suddenly we're very close in the dim light of his study. You should go back to bed, he says, but he doesn't move away. So should you, I counter. Neither of us moves. I can feel the heat of his body, smell his cologne mixed with exhaustion and stress. His eyes drop to my lips and then back up, and the electricity between us is almost painful. Emma, he says, and my name in his rough voice does something to me. This is a bad idea, I whisper. The worst, he agrees. But he's leaning closer and I'm not pulling away, and for a moment I think he's going to kiss me, and I'm going to let him. Then we hear small footsteps, and both turn to see Marco in the doorway of the study, clutching his rabbit and looking scared. Bad dream, he whispers. I immediately move to him, crouching down. Oh, sweetheart, I say. It's okay. We're right here. He reaches for me and I pick him up, this small traumatized boy who's lost so much, and carry him back to his room with Dante following behind us. We tuck Marco back into bed together, Dante on one side and me on the other, and I sing softly until his eyes drift closed again. When we stand to leave, Dante catches my hand in the hallway. Thank you, he says quietly, for being here, for caring about him. I care about both of you, I admit before I can stop myself. Then I pull my hand away and go back to the guest suite before I can do something stupid like kiss a man who's both my captor and the most compelling person I've ever met. The third morning starts with shouting, and I wake to the sound of harsh voices speaking rapid Italian somewhere in the penthouse, and my heart immediately starts racing because nothing good ever comes from that tone. I pull on the robe Rosa left for me and hurry out to find Dante's study full of men in dark suits, all talking over each other while Dante stands at the center, looking like he wants to kill someone. When he sees me in the doorway, his expression goes even harder. My room, he says. Now. It's not a request. I follow him to his private study, where he closes the door and rounds on me with fury in his dark eyes. Tell me the truth, he says, his voice harsh and cutting. All of it. Have you ever had contact with anyone named Volkov? Any Russian names? Anyone who asked about your schedule? What? I say, completely confused. No, I don't know anyone Russian. What's happening? His tech guy appears at the door looking nervous. Boss, you need to see this. He's holding a tablet and Dante takes it, his jaw clenching as he reads whatever is on the screen. Then he turns it toward me, and I see my apartment on the screen, my modest little space that I can barely afford, except it's been completely ransacked. My belongings are thrown everywhere, furniture overturned, everything I own violated and destroyed. Someone broke into my apartment last night, Dante says coldly. Someone was looking for you, Emma. Or looking for evidence of your involvement. I already told you everything, I say, and I'm shaking now from shock and fear. I'm a teacher. The most exciting thing in my life before this was parent-teacher conferences. I don't know any Russians. I don't know anything about kidnapping or organized crime or whatever this is. The tech guy, a thin man with glasses named Marcus, clears his throat. Boss, there's more. He taps something on another tablet and pulls up phone records. We found a deleted text message on Miss Clarke's phone from 3 hours before she found Marco. It claimed to be from a car service offering her a complimentary ride to a location 2 blocks from that bus stop. Her phone was pinged. Someone knew exactly where she'd be. I stare at the screen trying to remember, and then it hits me. That text, I whisper. I thought it was spam. I deleted it without even really reading it. I didn't have a car service. My car was broken. I took the bus instead. I look up at Dante and see the calculation in his eyes. Someone planned this, I say, horror dawning. They planned for me to find Marco, which means either you're the most elaborate plant I've ever seen, Dante says, his voice cold and distant, or you're a civilian who's been weaponized without knowing it. Either way, you're a threat to Marco. I feel like he's slapped me. After everything, after the past 2 days of taking care of Marco and opening up to him and almost kissing him last night, he's back to suspecting me, and it hurts more than I want to admit. I'm not a threat to that little boy, I say, my voice shaking. I would never hurt him. You don't get to decide that, Dante says. I do. And right now, every piece of evidence says you were specifically positioned to intercept Marco, to gain access to this house, to get close to us. For what purpose, I don't know yet, but I will find out. He turns to Marcus. Pull everything. Every communication, every transaction, every person she's had contact with in the last 6 months. I want to know why the Volkovs chose her. The Volkovs, I repeat numbly. Who are the Volkovs? Russian organization trying to move into my territory, Dante says, not looking at me. Professionals, well-funded, ruthless. They took Marco, and now they're using you somehow. The question is whether you know it or not. Before I can respond, we hear small footsteps running and then Marco bursts into the study with Rosa chasing after him, looking distressed. I'm sorry, Mr. Moretti, Rosa says. He heard the shouting and he ran. Marco doesn't go to Dante. He runs straight to me and wraps his small arms around my legs and looks up at me with terrified amber eyes. Don't go, he says, and his voice is clearer than I've ever heard it. Please don't go like Daddy did. Sweetheart, I say, crouching down to his level even though Dante is radiating disapproval. I'm not going anywhere right now. You're safe. The bad men, Marco says, and he's trembling. They had a picture of her. They showed me. He points at me. They said, see, the nice teacher will help you. She'll give you her coat and keep you warm, and your uncle will find you. They made me memorize her face. The room goes completely silent. I feel the blood drain from my face as I realize what Marco is saying. The kidnappers showed him my picture. They knew I would be there. They planned for me to find him. Dante moves forward and gently takes Marco from my arms, and I feel the loss like a physical wound. Marco, he says quietly, the bad men showed you a picture of Emma. Marco nods, tears streaming down his face. They said she was nice. They said she would help. They said to wait at the bus stop and she would come and give me her coat, because that's what nice teachers do, and then you would find me Uncle Dante, and I'd be safe again. What else did they say? Dante asks, his voice carefully controlled. Did they say why? Marco shakes his head. Just that she would help, that I should trust her. Rosa, Dante says. Take Marco to his room, please. Rosa moves forward, but Marco fights her, reaching back for me. Emma, he cries. I want Emma. Don't make her go. I can't, sweetie, I manage through my tight throat. Your uncle needs to talk to me. But I'll come see you soon, okay? I promise. Rosa carries the sobbing child away, and I stand there in Dante's study, feeling like my entire world has collapsed. I never asked for this, I say, and I'm shaking with anger and fear and hurt. I gave my coat to a freezing child. That's all. And now my life is destroyed and you look at me like I'm the enemy. If you are the enemy, Dante says, and his control is slipping, I've already lost. Do you understand? I brought you into my home, near Marco, near the only family I have left. If you're working with them, if this is all an elaborate setup, then I've failed him, failed my brother, failed everything that matters. I'm not, I say desperately, but I can't prove that, can I? So what now? You lock me up, make me disappear, because that's what people like you do, right? People like me. he repeats, and there's something dangerous in his voice. Yes, Emma. People like me. People who live in a world where everyone has an angle and kindness is usually a trap, and the woman who seems too good to be true probably is. His phone rings, and he answers it sharply in Italian, listening to whoever is on the other end. His expression goes even harder. He ends the call and looks at me. There are men watching your building, he says. Volkov's men. They know you didn't play whatever part you were supposed to play correctly, which means you're now a liability to them. Marcus appears at the door again, looking stressed. Boss, we have a problem. He pulls up surveillance photos on his tablet, images of men in dark clothes stationed around what I recognize as my apartment building. More photos show me from weeks ago, coming out of my school, going into the coffee shop I visit every Saturday, walking to my car. Someone has been watching me for months. Why? I whisper, staring at evidence that my entire life has been under surveillance. What could they possibly want with me? That's what I intend to find out, Dante says. But until then, you're not leaving this penthouse. Not because I'm keeping you prisoner, but because the moment you step outside, they will kill you. Do you understand? They will kill you to cover their tracks. I sink into a chair because my legs won't hold me anymore. This can't be happening, I say. This can't be real. I'm nobody. I'm a teacher who can barely pay rent. Why would Russian mobsters care about me? I don't know, Dante says, and he moves to his desk where papers are scattered everywhere. But someone went to extraordinary lengths to position you at that bus stop at that exact time. Someone knew your schedule well enough to predict you'd be there. Someone knew you well enough to know you'd give your coat to a freezing child. This wasn't random, Emma. This was planned down to the smallest detail. I look up at him and see the conflict in his eyes, suspicion warring with something else. You're trying to decide if I'm a victim or a villain, I say quietly. He doesn't deny it. I'm trying to decide how to keep Marco safe, he says. And whether that means keeping you close or sending you as far away as possible. Marco needs me, I say. You saw him. He's finally talking, finally trusting someone. If you take that away from him now, it will destroy him. And you, Dante says, studying me. What do you need, Emma? I need the truth, I say. I need to know why this is happening to me. I need to understand what I did to deserve having my entire life turned upside down. And my voice breaks slightly, I need you to believe me, to trust that I'm telling the truth. He's quiet for a long moment. I want to believe you, he finally says, more than you know. But wanting something doesn't make it true. Then investigate me, I say, standing up even though I'm trembling. Tear apart my entire life. Look at every email, every phone call, every transaction. You won't find anything because there's nothing to find. I'm exactly what I appear to be, a nobody who made the mistake of being kind to a child. His phone buzzes with a message and he looks at it, his expression darkening. We have 48 hours, he says. The Volkovs have sent word through intermediary channels. They want to negotiate. They're using you as leverage. What does that mean? I ask. It means they're going to offer me a deal, Dante says. You for something they want. Territory, cooperation, access. And they're betting I'll refuse because I don't trust you, which will make you expendable to them. Or I'll agree because I do trust you, which means you're valuable as a hostage. Either way, you're in danger. So what do? I ask. We, he says again, and something shifts in his expression. You keep saying we. I don't have anyone else, I admit. My parents are dead. I have no family. My friends are other teachers who wouldn't understand any of this. You and Marco and Rosa are all I have right now. And despite everything, despite your suspicion and your cold calculations and your dangerous world, I trust you more than I trust the people who manipulated me into this situation. Why? He asks, and he sounds genuinely curious. Why would you trust me? Because you love that little boy, I say simply. Because you're trying to protect him even though it's tearing you apart. Because under all the ruthlessness and control, you're grieving your brother and terrified of failing the only family you have left. I recognize that fear. I've lived with it my whole life. He moves closer, his dark eyes searching my face. If I'm wrong about you, he says quietly, if you are working with them and this is all an act, it will destroy me. Then don't be wrong, I say. Trust your instincts. You've watched me with Marco. You've seen how I am with him. Does that seem like manipulation to you? No, he admits. It seems like genuine compassion, which is exactly what would make you the perfect plant. I want to scream in frustration, but instead I step even closer, close enough that I can feel the heat of his body. I'm going to say this once, I tell him. I am not your enemy. I did not plan any of this. I gave my coat to a freezing child because that's who I am. And if the Volkovs think they can use me against you, they're wrong, because I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here until we figure this out, and I'm going to help you protect Marco, whether you trust me or not. His hand comes up and cups my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met, he says, or the most dangerous. Maybe both, I whisper. He almost smiles. Almost. Then his phone rings again, and the moment shatters. He answers it, and his expression goes cold and focused. We have movement, he says to whoever is on the line. Mobilize everyone. He looks at me. They're coming for you, he says. The Volkovs. They've made their move. Now I figure out how to keep you alive while hunting the people who are using you as bait. The investigation takes 6 hours, and when Marcus finally appears in the doorway of Dante's study, where I'm sitting with cold coffee and frayed nerves, his expression tells me everything I need to know before he says a word. Sir, he says quietly, you're not going to believe this. Dante looks up from the security reports he's been studying, and something in Marcus's tone makes him go very still. Show me, he says. Marcus sets his tablet on the desk and pulls up documents, hospital records, birth certificates, DNA analysis that means nothing to me until I see the names. Emma Clarke's biological mother was Irina Volkov, Marcus says, and his voice is careful like he's defusing a bomb. She's Dmitry Volkov's granddaughter. The room tilts, and I grab the edge of the desk, because that can't be right. That's impossible. I have no family. I've never had family. That's impossible, I hear myself say. I was in foster care. I have no family. I've never even heard the name Volkov before 3 days ago. Your mother died in a shelter when you were 2 days old, Marcus says gently. No identification. You were made a ward of the state. But we found hospital records that were sealed, DNA that was kept in cold storage. He pulls up a photo, and I see a young woman, maybe 19, with dark hair and eyes that are unmistakably the same amber gold as mine. Sir, there's no doubt. Irina Volkov ran away from her family at 19, pregnant, trying to escape. She had a brief relationship with an American man who died before Emma was born. She died in childbirth complications, alone, with no ID. The baby went into the system. I stare at the photo of my mother, the mother I never knew, and feel something break inside me. She looks so young, so scared, and I can see myself in her features, in the shape of her face, in those eyes. Why? I whisper. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because Dmitry Volkov never publicly acknowledged your existence, Marcus says. But our sources confirm he's known about you for years. He's been watching you, tracking you, waiting for the right moment to use you. And now you know his plan, Dante says, his voice hard. Get Emma into my orbit, use her unknowing presence to gather intelligence, create opportunities for attack. Then eventually reveal that I've been sheltering the granddaughter of my enemy. It would destabilize my organization, create doubt among my men, possibly trigger a war we're not prepared for. I stand up abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Now you know, I say, and my voice sounds hollow even to my own ears. I'm exactly what you feared, the enemy in your home. All along, it was me. No, Dante says sharply. You're a woman who's been used and manipulated her entire life, starting with being abandoned as an infant. Dmitry Volkov doesn't get to claim you just because of biology. I'm his granddaughter, I say, and I can feel hysteria rising in my chest. I'm related to the people who hurt Marco, who killed your brother, who are trying to destroy you. My family did this. But your organization, I continue, looking at Marcus, and then back to Dante. Your men, they'll never trust me now. How can you? Because I know the difference between blood and character, Dante says, standing and moving around the desk toward me. My brother taught me that. Family isn't who you're born to, Emma. It's who you choose. And you are not your grandfather. I'm one of them, I say, backing away. The monsters who kidnap children and manipulate innocent people and kill anyone who gets in their way. That's my blood, Dante. That's who I am. You're the woman who gave her coat to a freezing child, Dante says, and he's moving closer. You're the teacher who spends her own money on supplies for students whose parents can't afford them. You're the person who sat with Marco for hours reading dinosaur books and singing silly songs because he needed someone to care. That's who you are, not some accident of genetics. I need to leave, I say suddenly. I need to get out of here before I bring more danger down on you and Marco. This is my fault. All of this. If I just disappear, maybe Dmitry will stop targeting you. You think I'd let you walk into danger alone? Dante says, and he catches my arm as I try to move past him. Emma, stop! Let me go, I say, trying to pull away. I never should have come here. I never should have gotten involved. You were manipulated, he says, his grip gentle but firm. None of this is your fault. I try to leave again, but he pulls me back, and suddenly his hands are on my face, forcing me to look at him. Listen to me, he says, his dark eyes intense. I know exactly who you are. You're the woman who gave her coat to a freezing child. Nothing else defines you. Not your grandfather, not your mother's choices, not the circumstances of your birth. Just your own actions, and every single one of them has been good. Something in his voice, in the certainty of his words, breaks through my panic, and suddenly I'm sobbing, all the fear and confusion and identity crisis of the past days crashing down on me at once. I'm crying so hard I can barely breathe, and Dante pulls me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me, one hand stroking my hair. It's okay, he murmurs in Italian, words I don't understand, but the tone is soothing. You're safe. I have you. You're safe. I don't know how long I cry, but eventually the storm passes and I'm left exhausted and hollow in his arms. I'm sorry, I manage. I'm so sorry for all of this. You have nothing to apologize for, he says quietly. Nothing. But we need to figure out what to do. Dmitry won't stop coming for you. You're his granddaughter, and in his twisted view, that makes you his property. And my enemies will use your parentage against me if they find out. I pull back slightly to look at him. So what do we do? I could face him, I say. Go to Dmitry and tell him I want no part of his world. Tell him to leave you and Marco alone. Absolutely not, Dante says immediately. That's too dangerous. He's not going to just let you walk away. He's had people watching me for years, I argue. Maybe if I acknowledge the connection, if I agree to be part of his family publicly, he'll back off from you. You would sacrifice yourself, Dante says. And there's something dangerous in his voice. Bind yourself to that monster. For what? For Marco, I say simply. For that little boy who's already lost so much. If I can save him, nothing else matters. Before Dante can respond, we hear Rosa scream from down the hallway, and both of us are running. Dante pulling a gun from somewhere I didn't know he had weapons hidden. We burst into Marco's room to find Rosa standing by the window, her hand over her mouth, staring at an empty bed. The stuffed rabbit Marco never goes anywhere without is sitting on the pillow, and next to it is a note on expensive cream-colored paper. Dante snatches it up, and I watch his face go absolutely white. "What does it say?" I ask, even though I already know it's nothing good. "Trade," he reads, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "The girl for the boy. Midnight. Come alone." "No," I breathe. "How did they get in? We have security everywhere." The window is slightly open despite all the locks and alarms, and Dante moves to it, his entire body radiating lethal fury. "Professional extraction team," he says. "They disabled the security, came in through the window, took him without anyone hearing. This was planned to the second." "They want me," I say, moving toward the door. "Let me go. I'll trade myself for Marco right now." Dante whirls on me. "Absolutely not. This is a trap. They'll kill you both." "You don't know that," I say desperately. "Maybe if I talk to Dimitri, if I tell him I'll acknowledge him publicly, be part of his family, maybe he'll let Marco go." "You would do that," Dante says, grabbing my shoulders. "Sacrifice yourself, destroy your own life, bind yourself to the man responsible for all of this." "He's a little boy," I say, and tears are streaming down my face. "He already lost his father. If I can save him, nothing else matters." "It matters to me," Dante says, and something breaks in his expression. "You matter to me, Emma, more than you should, more than is wise, but I can't ask you to sacrifice yourself." "You're not asking," I point out. "I'm offering. Because that child is innocent and I'm the reason he's in danger again. My family did this. My grandfather. Let me fix it." "This isn't your fault," Dante says. "And I'm not letting you walk into Dmitry Volkov's hands. We'll find another way." "What other way?" I demand. "We have until midnight. That's," I check the clock, 6 hours. 6 hours to find Marco before God knows what they do to him." Dante's phone rings and he answers it with a snarl. "What?" He listens, and his expression goes even darker. "Put it on speaker." A voice comes through, accented and cultured and utterly cold. "Mr. Moretti," the voice says, "I believe we have something of yours. And you have something of mine." "I want to speak to Marco," Dante says. "Prove he's alive." There's a pause, and then a small frightened voice. "Uncle Dante, I'm scared. They said Emma has to come or they'll hurt me." "Marco," Dante says, and his voice cracks. "I'm going to get you back, I promise." "That's enough," the voice says. Midnight. The old warehouse on the East Docks. "Your lovely Emma for the boy. Come alone or we kill him." The line goes dead. Dante immediately starts barking orders in Italian to his men who appear from everywhere, the penthouse transforming into a war room with weapons being pulled from hidden compartments and tactical plans being drawn up. I watch him become someone else entirely, the ruthless Mafia boss, all cold calculation and controlled violence, and I realize this is who he really is under the grief and tenderness I've seen with Marco. "I'm coming with you," I say. "No, you're not," he says without looking at me. "This is my fight." "He's my family too," I say, and he finally looks at me. Maybe not by blood in the way I thought, but I care about him. And this is happening because of me, because Dmitry Volkov wants to claim me as his granddaughter. So I'm going to that warehouse, and I'm going to end this. "Emma," Dante says, and he crosses to me, his hands framing my face. "If something happens to you, if I lose you, I will burn this entire city to the ground. Do you understand?" "Then don't lose me," I say. "Come with me. Protect me." "But I'm going whether you agree or not, because I'm not letting that little boy suffer because of my bloodline." He studies my face for a long moment. "You're the bravest person I've ever met," he says quietly. "Or the most foolish." Maybe both, I say, echoing our earlier conversation. This time he does smile, brief and pained. Probably both. His expression hardens. Fine. You come with me. But you follow my orders exactly. No arguments, no improvisation. The second I tell you to do something, you do it. Agreed, I say. We have 5 hours to prepare, Dante says, turning back to his men. I want full tactical support positioned around that warehouse. Snipers on every roof, exit routes planned, and someone find me everything there is to know about Dmitry Volkov's security protocols. He looks at me. You're going to meet your grandfather, Emma. Let's make sure you survive it. The warehouse looms ahead of us in the darkness, all broken windows and rusted metal, and I can smell the salt water from the docks mixed with oil and decay. My heart is pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat, but I force myself to keep walking beside Dante, both of us approaching the massive sliding doors that stand partially open. I know his men are positioned on every rooftop within shooting range, that there are snipers and backup and carefully planned exit routes. But right now, it feels like we're completely alone walking into a trap. Stay behind me, Dante says quietly, his hand resting on the gun concealed under his jacket. And remember, you follow my orders exactly. I remember, I say, even though every instinct is screaming at me to run toward Marco, to get to him as fast as possible. We step inside and the space is cavernous and dark, except for harsh work lights set up in the center that create pools of brightness in the surrounding shadows. Our footsteps echo on the concrete floor, and then I see him. Marco, sitting in a chair looking so small and terrified, and standing next to him is a man in his 60s wearing an expensive suit, his silver hair perfectly styled, his posture relaxed like this is a casual business meeting instead of a kidnapping. Around them are at least a dozen men in dark clothes, all armed, all watching us with cold professional eyes. Emma, Marco sobs when he sees me, trying to get up, but one of the men puts a hand on his shoulder, keeping him in place. Uncle Dante, Emma, please. We're here, sweetheart, I call out, forcing my voice to stay calm. You're going to be okay. Finally, the older man says, and his voice is cultured with just a hint of an accent. We meet properly. He looks directly at me and smiles. You have your mother's eyes. Irina would be proud of the woman you've become. You're Dmitry Volkov, I say, and I'm proud that my voice doesn't shake. You kidnapped a child. Twice. I borrowed my grandson temporarily, he corrects, to facilitate this conversation. He gestures to chairs that have been set up like we're about to have tea. Please, sit. Let's discuss this civilly. Release Marco first, Dante says, his voice hard as steel. Then we'll talk. I'm afraid that's not how negotiations work, Dmitry says pleasantly. But I assure you the boy is unharmed. I have no desire to hurt children. Just to manipulate them, I say, anger cutting through my fear. Just to terrorize them and use them as pawns. You didn't know her, I continue, taking a step forward despite Dante's warning hand. If you had, you'd know she'd hate what you're doing. My daughter made her choices, Dmitry says, and for the first time there's an edge to his voice. Foolish choices driven by sentiment and romantic notions. She ran from everything I could offer her, everything I built for her, and died in poverty and pain. I've spent years ensuring you didn't suffer the same fate. By watching me from the shadows, I say, by manipulating my entire life. I'm offering you a family, dear, Dmitry says, his tone gentling. Something you've never had. A place to belong. Wealth, security, power. Everything your mother threw away, you can reclaim. I belong where I choose to belong, I say. Not where blood says I should. She's a Volkov, Dmitry says, turning to Dante. That supersedes whatever arrangement you've developed with her. I'm willing to discuss terms for a peaceful alliance. My granddaughter for your cooperation in certain territorial matters, perhaps even a full merger of our organizations. She's not a bargaining chip, Dante says, and he moves to position himself between Dmitri and me. She's a person who's made her choice clear. Young man, Dmitri says, and there's steel under the pleasant tone now. You don't understand family. Blood calls to blood. Emma will come to me eventually. Perhaps not today, but she will. Because that's what Volkovs do. We claim what's ours. My mother ran from you, I interrupt, stepping around Dante. She died alone in a shelter rather than raise me in your world. That tells me everything I need to know about family Volkov style. I've made my choice, and it's not you. Dmitri's calm facade cracks slightly, his jaw tightening. You are a Volkov, he says. That's decided by blood, not sentiment. You can pretend to be this ordinary teacher, this good Samaritan, but your blood tells the truth. You're my granddaughter, and I will not lose you the way I lost Irina. She's made her choice, Dante says again. Release Marco and let us leave. Or what? Dmitri says. And suddenly, the pleasant businessman is gone, and I see the ruthless crime lord underneath. You'll start a war you can't win. You're outnumbered and outgunned, Mr. Moretti. And you care far too much about my granddaughter to risk her in a firefight. Actually, Dante says, and his voice is deadly calm, you're the one who's outnumbered. On his signal, I hear movement from the shadows, and suddenly Dante's men are everywhere, appearing from behind crates and machinery, their weapons trained on Dmitri's people. Dmitri's men immediately draw their weapons, and in seconds, the warehouse is a standoff with Marco crying in the middle of it all. Stop! I shout. Everyone just stop! Marco is terrified, and you're all acting like he doesn't matter. He matters to me, Dmitri says. He's leverage. That's all children are to you, I say, disgusted. Tools, weapons, my mother knew that. That's why she ran. Marco sobs Emma, and I can't take it anymore. I start walking directly toward Dmitri, past all the armed men, ignoring Dante's sharp command to stop. Emma, Dante calls. Get back here now. I keep walking until I'm standing right in front of Dmitri Volkov, close enough to see the amber gold in his eyes that matches mine, close enough to see the grief he hides under his cold exterior. Did you love her? I ask quietly. Irina, your daughter. Of course, he says, and he sounds offended I would ask. She was my youngest, my brightest. Then let me go, I say. Let me live the life she died trying to give me. If you loved her, honor her sacrifice. You ask me to lose you both, he says, and something breaks in his controlled expression. You ask me to have found you after all these years, and then walk away. You lost Irina the day you showed her what this life really means, I say gently. When she saw that family to you meant control, and power, and violence. She chose love and freedom, and yes, she paid for it with her life. But she died free, Dmitri. She died having made her own choices. Don't make the same mistake twice. Don't try to cage me the way you caged her. I reach out and touch his hand. This man who orchestrated so much pain, and I see his eyes soften. I'm not asking you to forget I exist, I continue. I'm asking you to let me choose my own path. To respect that I'm Irina's daughter in the ways that matter, not just blood, but spirit. And she would want me free. He looks at me for a long moment, and I see him warring with himself, decades of control and power and ruthlessness, fighting against genuine grief for the daughter he lost, and maybe, just maybe, real care for the granddaughter he found. You are so much like her, he finally says, his voice rough. Stubborn, idealistic, foolish. But yes, he continues, you're right, she would want you free. He gestures sharply to his men. Release the boy. One of his men brings Marco to me, and the little boy crashes into my arms sobbing. I've got you, I whisper, holding him tight. You're safe now. I promise you're safe. Dante is beside us in seconds, his hands on both of us, checking Marco over with barely controlled panic while keeping himself between us and Dmitri. "This isn't over," Dmitri says, looking at me. "You're still my granddaughter, Emma. Still a Volkov, whether you claim the name or not. And I will be watching always to ensure you're safe." "Is that a threat?" Dante asks, his voice dangerous. "It's a promise," Dmitri says, "to Irina's memory. I couldn't protect her. I won't make that mistake with her daughter." We leave the warehouse with Marco between us, both of us holding him, and I don't breathe properly until we're in Dante's car speeding away from the docks. Behind us, I know there are negotiations happening, territorial agreements being made, the complex machinery of organized crime grinding forward. But all I care about is the little boy crying against my shoulder and the man beside me, whose hand finds mine and holds tight. 3 days later, I'm back in my apartment trying to resume some semblance of normal life, even though nothing will ever be normal again. My landlord installed new locks at Dante's insistence, and there are security cameras I'm not supposed to know about, and men watching my building 24/7. I'm drinking coffee from my chipped mug and grading papers when there's a knock on my door. It's Dante, looking out of place in my shabby hallway in his expensive suit. "Can I come in?" he asks. I step aside and he enters my small space, and I'm suddenly very aware of how different our worlds are, how this apartment could fit into his penthouse 3 times over. "I've been thinking," he says, and he looks uncomfortable in a way I've never seen him. "About us. About what happens now." I wait, my heart pounding. "I can offer you protection," he continues. "Security for the rest of your life. Money if you need it. Anything you want. But I can't offer you normal. There will always be danger, always be complications. My enemies, my world, they don't go away. You deserve someone who can give you the safe, ordinary life you should have had." "Is that what you think I want?" I ask. "Safety. Ordinary. Don't you?" he asks. "After everything you've been through. The life I should have had ended when my mother died," I say. "I've been surviving ever since, Dante. Getting by. Being invisible. With you, with Marco, that's not surviving. That's living. If you stay," he says, and his voice is rough, "there's no going back. My world, my enemies, they become yours. Your world has a little boy who needs someone to tuck him in," I say. "Your world has you. That's enough." "I need you, Emma," he says, and the vulnerability in his voice breaks my heart. "Not for Marco, for me." "I know," I say, moving closer. "I need you too. So let's stop pretending either of us can walk away." He cups my face in his hands and kisses me, and it's everything I didn't know I needed, fierce and tender and full of promise. When we finally break apart, he rests his forehead against mine. "Move in with us," he says, "not as a guest or a prisoner, as my partner, as Marco's family, as mine." "Yes," I whisper. "Yes to all of it." 6 weeks later, I'm standing at a bus stop in late autumn sun, golden light filtering through falling leaves, and I'm smiling because everything has changed. A sleek black car pulls up, and the window rolls down to reveal Marco in the back seat grinning at me. "Emma," he calls, "we brought you coffee, the good kind that you like." I open the door and slide in next to him, accepting the expensive coffee from Dante in the driver's seat. "How was school?" Dante asks, pulling back into traffic. "Good," I say. "The donation you made, the anonymous one, means we can finally afford new computers for the lab." "I have no idea what you're talking about," he says, but he's smiling. Marco chatters about his day at his new school, about the book I'm reading to him at night, about the cookies Rosa promised to make this weekend. Dante's hand finds mine over the center console, and I look at this life I've built, this family I've chosen, and I think about that freezing February night when I gave my coat to a stranger child. I couldn't have known then where that simple act of kindness would lead. To danger and discovery, to family and love, to becoming someone I never imagined I could be. Not invisible anymore. Not just surviving, living fully, dangerously, completely. When we get back to the penthouse, Rosa is waiting with dinner, and Marco runs to show her a drawing he made at school. Dante pulls me back for a moment, his arms wrapping around me from behind. No regrets, he asks quietly. Not even one, I say, turning in his arms. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. In Marco's room later that night, after stories and songs and goodnight kisses, I notice something new on the wall. It's my old wool coat, the one I gave Marco that night, professionally cleaned and framed behind glass. A reminder, Dante says from the doorway, of the night everything changed, of the woman who chose kindness even when it cost her everything. It brought me you, I say. It brought me both of you. That's worth any cost. He takes my hand and we stand together watching Marco sleep, this little boy who lost so much and found his way back to love. Outside, the city glitters with lights and danger and all the complications of the world we've chosen. But inside this room, in this moment, there's only peace and family and the absolute certainty that some choices, no matter how impossible they seem, are always right. The kindness I showed a freezing child at a bus stop led me here. To this family, to this love, to this life. And I would make that same choice again in a heartbeat.